Hi, this is Don. Wanted to talk to you today about three different things. They may not seem related, but they are. Impulsiveness, doing one thing differently for today, and changing your name. And those three items will come together pretty quickly. I did something rather impulsive today. For the first time in 52 years, I shaved my beard. I grew a beard back in the college days and maintained it for a long time. And in my late 20s, my wife at that time said, I wonder how you would look without a beard. And I decided to shave it for her. I apparently looked like a stranger to her. She said, You're not the man I married. And so she said, Grow it back. And I did. And 52 years went by. And for some reason this morning, I got up and I said, I wonder what I look like without a beard. If you see any of my other videos, you'll see the beard and mustache firmly in place. And I looked in the mirror and I saw a stranger. It didn't look like me. Can't say that I liked it, can't say that I disliked it, but it was different. And the whole day has felt kind of different. Like simply by changing one thing, everything seems a bit different today. And it made me think that sometimes that's all we need to change life up a bit. I don't know if you ever have periods where days go by and you feel like nothing new happens. I'm in I've kind of have this routine, or I'm in a little bit of a rut. I need a change. Well, you don't always need a major change in your life. Sometimes changing one thing has a kind of an echo or reverberation, and everything changes a bit. For example, what if you're an introverted person and you say, you know what, today I'm going to be more outgoing, and see how people react to me. Or maybe you're an outgoing, very talkative person and you say, today I'm going to be a little quieter, more reflective, and see if that changes anything. There's a very interesting psychological concept called the principle of opposites. Carl Jung came up with that, and what he said is that for every external trait we have the opposite trait internally at an unconscious level. So if you're an introvert, you do have an extroverted part of yourself in there. And so if you choose to, today, tomorrow, whenever you choose, you can get in touch with that part of yourself and essentially speak from your extrovert rather than your introvert. And then see how people react. You only have to do it for a day. It doesn't have to be a permanent change. And if you're an extrovert, the opposite is true. And Jung felt that finding a balance between those extremes is actually a healthy thing as we grow and as we mature. Now, I want to kind of wrap this up by using an interesting but related example of the power of changing your name. I attended a workshop a good number of years ago for 2 weeks, and we were asked not to use our real name, but to create a new name for ourselves. And we didn't have to stick to a commonly given name. We could pick the name of an animal or a plant or an emotion, anything we wanted, as long as it was meaningful for us. So I was wrestling between two different names. One of them was the name Inside, because I felt at the time that I kept a lot to myself, my thoughts, my emotions, and I wanted to be a little more forthcoming. And so I thought, well, that's an appropriate name. The other name was a little goofier, and to be honest, I was a little embarrassed to use it, but I loved it. I've always been drawn to playful kinds of names, and I had just seen a TV show, a series about a police officer who was an undercover officer, and each episode he would play a different role in life. And the most recent episode, he had been a country and western singer with the name of Sweet Billy Peaches. And somehow I love that name, and I thought, wow, what if I took that on in this environment? How would people react? But I just felt a little too silly. So I went with the name Inside. And I announced my name, as everybody else did when the workshop began, and people called me Inside when they saw me. And they didn't seem to treat me any differently than they normally do. But after about a week, I began to feel much more comfortable. Other people were using some imaginative names, so I said, I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to go with this name I really love. And I announced one day, and you could change your name at any point, I said, I'm no longer Inside. I am now Sweet Billy Peaches. And immediately things changed. Rest of the people formed a circle around me and they started chanting Sweet Billy Peaches. And they started treating me totally differently. They were very much more friendly. They invited me to do things with them. It was like I was a different person. And I was totally puzzled because I was the same person inside. And finally, I brought that up in one of the sessions, and one person turned to me and said, when you were in, when you had the name inside, we thought you wanted to be left alone. But Sweet Billy Peaches is a very outgoing party animal kind of name, and so that totally changed the way we saw you. And so I realized as I thought about that, we go through life thinking people treat us a certain way because of how they are or how the world is, rather than what we are projecting. And that probably most of the time I was projecting this inside vibe, which kept people away from me when I really wanted them to approach me. And could I project more of a Sweet Billy Peaches, hi, how you doing? Let's get together vibe, in which case people might react totally differently to me. It's interesting. Sweet Billy Peaches is a mouthful, so people would refer to me as Sweet Billy or Peaches, and that was kind of fun. So, if tomorrow you were going to change one thing in your life, perhaps the way you look or some aspect of your personality, what would that be? It's a good low risk way to just change things up a bit and see what happens. So, wish you a good day and perhaps a different day if you decide to try something. Take care. Bye.